Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Sam Metcalf. I'm the Midlands editor of thebusinessdesk.com. Welcome to this latest Invest Midlands session called Staying at the Front of the Global Automotive Race, which will look at this vastly important sector called automotive. Of course, this sector has long been one of the jewels of the Midlands crown, but with such big changes happening from electric vehicles to driverless, thrown in Brexit and the pandemic, how well placed is the region to maintain and enhance its global reputation? We've got a great panel with us today to answer these questions and others. So without further ado, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. Starting with you, please, John. John, you're on mute.
Apologies. Yeah, my name's John Russell. I'm the interim chief exec of Norton Motorcycles. I took that role on just over a year ago. Prior to that, a long career in the automotive industry with Land Rover, with BMW, and then with Harley Davidson motorcycles. And I'm delighted to be here and share a few thoughts with you.
John, Charlotte.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Charlotte Horobin. I'm the region director across the Midlands and the East of England for Make UK. We are the national body for UK manufacturing, representing 22,000 makers from Formula One teams through to textile manufacturers, pharmaceutical through to food.
Thank you, Charlotte. And Chris.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Reeves, head of connected and autonomous vehicles at Horiba Mira, where a major part of my responsibility is focused on ensuring the robust and safe performance of connected and automated vehicle technologies. But at Horiba Mira, we are a global engineering company supporting the transport sector with expertise in vehicle engineering, test engineering, and we're focused on making vehicles safer, cleaner and smarter, whilst also ensuring that they are rewarding to use. We also co-host approximately 40 clients on site within our Mira Technology Park, which is a transport-centric R&D technology park, and those clients are co-located with our experts and extensive range of engineering and test facilities.
Thank you, Chris. And let's look at the big picture to start with, if we can. How is the automotive sector performing in the Midlands at the moment?
Well, I've had the benefit actually of speaking to 60 chief execs and MDs across the Midlands over the last sort of 24 to 36 hours. And actually what became quite apparent in this month's meeting with that kind of inner sanctum of manufacturers was the automotive sector's feeling quite fragile right now. Although the year started off actually quite strong, we're now seeing the unexpected headwinds of disruption in the supply chain, really making it very hard for those businesses to forecast the future order and demand. So then your ability to plan your resources, your people, when you can, source those raw materials and get them on site really is becoming very challenging right now. And we are starting to see, therefore, those businesses starting to use the furlough scheme once again. So right now, Sam, a little bit fragile due to the international trade disruption that we're seeing.
It's affecting your company, John?
Yeah, I think we're in a slightly different place. And I think, firstly, I'm an optimist by nature, so condition your response and to my remarks on that basis. But I think we generally, and particularly automotive across its broader aspects, not just automotive manufacturing, but all the specialist businesses that support it, I think we're in a far better place than anybody would have imagined if we'd predicted the extent of the pandemic. I think the ability of businesses and individuals to adapt. We've set up Norton from nothing to a brand new business in a brand new facility with 150 employees just about to go into production. And we've done that in a year, which was extraordinary in itself. But we've done it through lockdown with most of our people working off screens. And I'm just constantly amazed in my career by the resilience, the ingenuity and the determination of people. And I think that's what has stood us in good stead through this period. And I think that's what will lead to another good period for the automotive industry going forward. So very, very much in the glass half full camp, I'm afraid.
Thanks, John. I just had a message from our tech team. We could ask you to mute when you're not speaking, please. Thanks. That's at the bottom there, John and Chris. Okay. Oh, I'm going to ask you now, Chris. Please don't mute. Are you glass half full?
Yeah, I am glass half full. There's no doubting that the automotive sector has gone through a difficult time, and it's still got a way to go to recover. But and there's many challenges facing the sector. But with those challenges, it's opening up new opportunities. And so, from a consultant engineering perspective, those challenges are generally, it can be categorized as decarbonisation, so how we move away from fossil fuels and into electrification and other energy vectors, how we use connectivity for greater optimization of our vehicles and the overall traffic system. We have automation and autonomy, again, opening up huge opportunities. And there's a general move with connectivity and levels of automation to enabling new business models through new services that can be accessed through vehicles and through transportation in general. So yeah, we're much more optimistic.
Great, that's good to hear. Of course, the Midlands is known for its very big automotive firms, but it's also got a huge bank of smaller firms as a supply chain. Is enough being done by the big firms and other bodies and organisations to help the supply chain through what's been obviously a very difficult time over the last 12 to 15 months? John, if I can.
Perspectives. One from our current Norton perspective, and we're a very small manufacturer, obviously big growth potential, but very small at the moment. And our issues are unique to the fact we're trying to re-establish a business. But I have to say that the basic rules of managing your supply base always apply. It's fundamentally a partnership. We're equally dependent. If we fail, they fail, and vice versa. And that's for us, the guiding principle. I think for the larger companies I worked for in the past, we always had the view that if we want our supply base to invest in quality, invest in new technologies, invest in people talent and those things which are essential, we had to create a sustainable future for those suppliers. And if we didn't, the supply base was lost. And if you go back to some of my earlier career days, back in the British Leyland days, that was the time when the OEMs didn't give a damn about the supply base, and the consequences were absolutely appalling. So I think I'm hopeful that most people are smart enough to realize that you have to manage your supply base through the difficult times the same way as you manage the other assets of the business, be it the people or be it the equipment.
Well, is that happening though?
I think it's difficult to tell the cause and effect really, Sam, because as we know, we've got complex integrated supply chains all across Europe. They're not just linear, it's not just one customer in a single supply chain. People have got multiple suppliers, multiple customers. But talking about the Midlands, we see lots of collaboration taking place, and there's been massive productivity improvements in the automotive sector from 2008 to 2018. So to John's point, I think there is recognition that there hasn't been the investment and perhaps the respect paid to the supply chain in previous decades. But I do think that that's now there, and we've got great work taking place at places like Horiba, Mira and WMG. So there does seem to be collaboration coming together for, as John said, that kind of long-term security.
Charlotte. And Chris, obviously collaboration's what you're all about, isn't it? Is that something you had to step up over the last year?
Yeah, it is very much so, because there's so much disruption taking place and new technologies and air quality requirements to be met and decarbonisation challenges. You have to collaborate to be able to just to keep pace and bring that new knowledge base into your business. But I think as well on the supply chain, because of the technology challenges that we face, there's a whole range of disruptors who are entering the supply base as well now. And so we're working with a number of these. They've been announced publicly recently. So we have Reeves, who are a disruptor coming in, looking at the electrification. startup companies such as Veritech, who are looking at the hydrogen and hydrogen fuel cell technologies. And the major OEMs are also looking at those new disruptive technologies, and many of them now having investment portfolios to underpin some of these new disruptive companies that are, will ultimately become part of the supply chain.
John, you're obviously a company with a long heritage. Are you adopting these new this new technology, and how quickly can you do that? And are you working with these sort of disruptors that Chris mentioned?
Yeah, I think at the moment as I said, we're just getting back into life again after a period of closure. But it's obvious that we need to be part of the new generation, not be a victim of the transition from what we have today to the future. I think for a motorcycle, the whole thing is more challenging, but there's more opportunities. If we can, move away from the unguided missile concept of a motorcycle towards a safer, easier experience that still has the thrill and the exhilaration and the enjoyment in an EV world or whatever powertrain we use, I think we've got real potential to sort of transform the way in which motorcycling is perceived. At the moment, it's interesting that it's perceived as a dangerous thing that your mother doesn't like you doing. But there are plenty of other dangerous things that your mother wouldn't like that are not categorized that way. So we've got to try and get ourselves on the other side of that fence. That's our challenge. I think on the car side, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say on the car side, I think there are two categories. I think there's a commuting sort of transport requirement that has a different technological and mobility solution and lends itself more easily for, if you like, linear adaptation of the modern technologies. I think when you're looking at high performance, luxury, motorcycling, I think that's where the challenges get very difficult to replicate the new sort of business world. And that's where the disruptors, I think, can play most easily. I think there's more margin to be had. There's more business opportunity. So Tesla, interestingly, has been perhaps the most business successful of all of the EV applications so far. Somebody who's trying to compete in low-cost EV scooters is finding it harder to compete with the main two-wheeler manufacturers that are out there at the moment. So, but we are going through a period of tremendous change and tremendous opportunity.
I was going to say a driverless motorbike doesn't really work, does it? Because that's the main thrill of it, isn't it?
Well, that's my view. But I remember doing a research exercise with a customer, and we asked him whether he liked the idea of a safe motorcycle, and he said, "I only do it because it's dangerous." So you're right. Not all riders, but some.
Yeah, sure. Charlotte, how has the makeup of your membership changed in the automotive sector? We're talking about new technology. It must have changed rapidly in the last 10, 15.
Yeah, I think the last 12 months in particular have really focused the mind. And I think what we are seeing now when we talk about rebalancing the economy is our members are really looking to move away from kind of traditional sectors. So rather than talking about supplying component A into sector B, they're more wanting to evolve their business models to be more sophisticated, to actually sell their capability in a servitized model. So actually selling your perhaps machining capability to provide parts at the right time into a number of sectors and a number of different export markets around the world. So we're certainly seeing that sophistication of business model coming through.
Thanks, Charlotte. Chris, how long, you do some weird and wonderful stuff down at Horiba Mira. How long does it take for that to come through to the consumer on average? Chris, you're on mute. So.
18 months, and it only took us 15 minutes to get that phrase out, didn't it? So,
yeah, it's the received phrase in society now.
It is indeed, yes. I think traditionally we've worked on 5-year type model life cycles. I think that is changing, and that is changing rapidly. So that is going to be compressed, and it's going to be compressed significantly. But I think the way that we refresh vehicles is going to change dramatically as well. So we have technologies such as over-the-air updates, where we can now refresh the software and start to introduce new functionality within the vehicle during the life cycle of the vehicle, and those are driving massive reductions in how long we have to develop new vehicles. It's also worth focusing on some of the another key strength that exists within the West Midlands, and that's around virtual engineering or digital engineering, again, which is enabling us to develop new vehicles faster, at lower cost, and reducing the engineering life cycle to go from the initial concept and the initial requirements capture through to a vehicle platform.
John, you recently moved from the East Midlands to the West Midlands. What new tech have you installed in your new place in Solihull?
At the moment, it's really us playing quite a lot of catch up, and I think the major area of technological improvement has been around our quality maturing processes, because I think the old Norton that we inherited the company from had some major issues around its engineering. Its design and the brand are all absolutely fantastic, but the engineering integrity left a lot to be desired. So our initial investment was around creating manufacturing, developing our quality processes, and that's been the major area of the spend. I think now we look at the next phase of evolution of the business. The biggest area is going to be around the whole idea of an alternative energy motorcycle, connected motorcycle. We work with WMG, we work with Mira, we work with lots of partners across the West Midlands, which is one of its great strengths. I think we've got a fully integrated network. I used to chair CBI back 10, 15 years ago in the West Midlands, and we clearly had advantages as a region in terms of the way in which the various sectors between the universities, the consultancies, the manufacturers, the supply chains worked. And I think that's a great source of strength for us. We've now got to face up to the challenge, though, that maybe half of what we do today is redundant. Whether it's making IC engines, lots of cars have massive investments in piece cost and technology in passive safety systems. Now, if you go to a fully connected, fully autonomous vehicle, you're installing lots of investment and cost into the dynamic safety of the vehicle. You suddenly don't need all the airbag systems and the crash resistant zones and those sorts of things. So I think at the moment, people can talk about a period of change. I think until you get into the granular detail of what it actually means, sector by sector, technology by technology, I think you go back to the origin of internal combustion engine. We went through that period of building horseless carriages. Well, I think we're going to go through a similar period with EV, that we're going to have a period where we adapt the old technologies, whether it's the manufacturing, the engineering, or the actual vehicle, to transform them into an EV. And then we're really going to start exploiting the opportunities of the technology. And I think that will be the really interesting phase, whether that comes in the next 5 or 10 years. But I think that it's almost a two-stage development as we shed some of the old technologies and begin the integration of new, and then we really start exploiting the opportunities of that new technology.
Charlotte, we've been talking about tech, and can we move that onto the bigger firms? Is the tail wagging the dog here, or is the dog wagging the tail? Is the tech, pushing the bigger firms, or
I can't remember if it was Chris or John that mentioned the disruptors coming in, but I think it's probably at both ends now. I think it's incredible and an exciting time to watch the digital sector really blurring the lines with the future manufacturing sector. And I think we are seeing some tremendous innovations coming out. We're seeing, again, those businesses that are looking to move away from their traditional route, stepping into new avenues and providing new services. So I don't think it's at either end, Sam. I think it is across the board. There's some really exciting things taking place. But of course, you've got to have demand from the customer, which ultimately feeds into your OEMs, but I'm sure there's certain, upward trends as well.
I'll ask you again. I didn't want to mention the B word, but I will. How so far, I guess, over 6 months in our way, has Brexit affected the sector in the Midlands?
I feel like I'm the sort of the passenger of doom with some of the items I'm picking up, Sam. I mean, it would be unfair of me to say that it's not affected our members. We've certainly seen delays, increases of price, and also some of our members ultimately losing out on contracts due to EU exit. Turning that on its head and following John's philosophy, though, let's talk about glass half full. We've now got businesses that traditionally didn't think that they were exporters, because sending something to Paris was the same as sending something to Peterborough, and they've had to invest in teams and expertise to be able to export. So we're now seeing more manufacturers open to exploring other export markets around the world and being able to grow that footprint. And that's really important, because we talk about the manufacturing sector as 10% of the UK economy, but actually it delivers well over half of UK exports. And actually the automotive sector delivers far more by proportion, and real packs a punch. So this, investing in those export teams, driving, the new skills forward could be really, really beneficial for the sector. But yes, we certainly have had a challenge thinking about the comment that this is teething problems. This morning, we were still hearing issues related to EU exit. I think one of the next challenges that we need to get manufacturers to think about and to be prepared for, particularly those in the automotive sector, is when we can start to see business travel happening again, because sending people to Europe on business trips is not going to be the same again. And we know that people haven't really got their heads around it.
Sure, thanks, Charlotte. John, has it affected you at all yet? Or are you sort of almost lucky that you haven't, sort of, like you said, kicked off again yet?
Yeah, we've been bringing product in, and that's been a little bit messy. I think that probably the biggest effect on us, which picks up on Charlotte's point about the sort of the teething trouble and the sort of getting used to it phase, it's actually can have quite a material effect in particular areas. And for us, it's been recruitment, where we've taken people from Europe and getting registered to employ Europeans and then get the visas done and such like. Is obviously that department, wherever it is overworked, but that slowed things down, tied up a lot of effort on our part. I think the interesting thing about what Charlotte said was back to my point about the adaptability and determination and ingenuity of people, that exporters are looking at it in a positive way and saying, right, now I've cracked the new EU, I can start selling to America or Japan. So I think that's what will sustain us, that amazing spirit of people.
Thanks, John. Chris, a comment from Chiara on the side there. Where can overseas investors fit into the EV battery stroke charging space in the Midlands, do you think?
Oh, very much so. There's real opportunities. There are core skills that exist and core capabilities that exist within the EV. The challenges that we face and the technologies that we need to develop. And I can only speak by example. So I mentioned earlier, we're very pleased to welcome Reeves to the technology park at Mira. They're an Israeli company, disruptive, focused on EV platforms, and they've decided to locate their engineering headquarters at the Mira Technology Park because of the competencies and the skills that exist within the Midlands. So in summary, it's really important, and we have a lot of assets that are very attractive to those overseas investors.
I want to come in on that one as well. Charlotte? Did you want to come in on that one, Charlotte?
Jeez.
Yeah. Can everybody hear me okay?
I can hear
I can hear you, Sam.
Charlotte maybe have lost voice.
Don't worry. It will be remiss of me to not mention the sponsors of this session, the kind sponsors, Invest Coventry and Warwickshire. With that in mind, John, how is the Midlands sector? Do you think you say you've worked in a lot of places? How is the Midlands sector seen overseas? Is it still seen as a centre of excellence, a magnet for inward investment?
Yeah, I think the magnet's probably too strong a word. I think we punch our weight, and we punch our weight for some very good reasons. I think some of them are what I said earlier about this sort of integrated hub approach we have, where when you engage with the West Midlands, you access a very powerful group with very, very strong intellectual, engineering sort of analytical skills. And I think that's at the heart of what we do. I think we tend to do well in the high IP, high brand value businesses. That's what attracted the investor that bought Norton. TVS is a big, third largest bike manufacturer in India, 4 million bikes a year, very attracted to the West Midlands. And they're interested in, the WMG connection, which they have, as well as the various skills that exist across the region. They've dealt with they've dealt with Mira in the past, they deal with Ricardo, a whole bunch of companies. And I think if I again go back to my early days with British Leyland was the last of the big companies we had in automotive that tried to compete on a low cost basis and ultimately failed. And we came out of that period and transitioned into a high investment, high talent, high knowledge based approach to industry. And I think that's the core of what we offer the world. And that's what we built our success on. We've talked about lots of things, but take Formula One, I think is always a great example. We are the base for Formula One, despite having very few teams with any particular brand connection with the UK. And that's based on our talent, our engineering, availability of technical services and such like. And that's what we've got to build on as we develop EV.
John, Chris, a comment from Ian on the side there. We talked about it a little bit, but are there any other supply chain gaps we can collectively work to plug with overseas investors, do you think?
Yeah, I think things like connectivity, many of the concepts that exist around the disruptive technologies require ubiquitous connectivity or broadly seamless connectivity for them to be a truly rewarding experience. So opening up investment in that area is very important. And again, technologies such as hydrogen has its role to play in decarbonisation. So international investment again be critical to opening up those supply chains. And Mira itself, we are Horiba Mira. We have a Japanese parent company behind us who are investing heavily in the consultants engineering and test engineering space to support these supply chains.
Briefly, hopefully she can come back before the end of the session. John, you talked about recruitment. Leading on from that, I guess, is the skills challenge. How do you think the sector's doing in terms of skills, and what more needs to be done?
Yeah, I think through the pandemic that one has taken a back seat because of other problems, but I think it is one of the underlying areas that we still need to give a lot more attention to. I think, again, going back to my CBI days where it was absolutely sort of life critical because we were suffering so many shortages, I think over the last 10 years, we've actually addressed that, working with the education sector, much bigger focus on STEM. I think you can see when you talk to young generations coming through the education system, a far greater interest in a technical or engineering or scientific sort of career. But I think we're heavily recruiting engineers, quality people, brand marketing people and such like, and we can see the market tightening up. We can see the beginnings of a shortage in some key areas. So I think we've worked on this in the past as a collective industry with all the the stakeholders across the various sectors. I think it's going to become one of our biggest issues going forward. And if we continue to have difficulties recruiting out of Europe, I think that will make our job a little bit more difficult as well. I think we're a very attractive place to work still. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is just the practical aspects of how you gain entry and right to work.
Thanks, John. Charlotte, can you hear us now?
I can. Apologies, I had a technical glitch.
No problem at all. We were just talking about skills, really, and you know, how we address the skills challenge in the Midlands. How do you see that question? And are we? Has it been? John mentioned there. It may have been put on the back burner over the last year. Are we? Is that storing up problems for the?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've had a systemic skills issue. If we part Brexit and COVID and whatever other flavour of the day, skills actually is always the number one issue that our members consistently have challenges around. And John's absolutely hit the nail on the head. We know in the last year, only 47% of manufacturers have recruited a manufacturing engineering type apprentice, and only 1 in 5 have actually recruited an apprentice into another part of the business. So that will then come home to roost in 3 or 4 years' time when those individuals would have been qualifying, and we'll have a shortage. In terms of solving it, I think it needs to start right from the grassroots, and it's societal. We've got to get all the way down to 5, 6, 7-year-olds who are passionate with playing and exploring and being creative, all the way through to secondary school. Starting to educate 15, 16-year-olds is far too late. And one of my other hats that I'm very proud to wear is I sit on the trust board at WMG Academy, so specialist business-led schools for 14 to 19-year-olds who work really closely with industry. So those young people throughout their time get to meet employers, they get to understand what opportunities are there, and they're exposed to lots of different options, not just manufacturing and engineering, but we do hope that that's where they choose to start their career. Make UK, with the backing of its members, I mean, we're a 125-year-old organisation. We've put £14 million into a world-class training centre in Birmingham. So we're training thousands of young people and in fact, apprentices of all ages these days into, again, manufacturing and engineering type roles. And we're in good company. We've got great work going on at the AMTC and other training providers. So work certainly is being done, but I think there is a place to start to join all of the great intent together.
Charlotte. Chris, it may sound daft to work at your place, but do you think the industry still has a sort of image problem, really, as far as attracting younger people to come and work?
I don't think we have an image problem, but I think we are competitive with other sectors now. So with the disruptive technologies that are coming in, you know, we're looking for system integrators, software engineers, you know, people who are specialists in simulation and modeling, etc. You know, people are now talking, you know, the car is the you know, your single biggest electronics purchase. So what we're actually finding is we're competing with other sectors where they also need their skills because of this digital transformation. So yeah, skills are a problem, and they are in certain technical areas, they are in short supply, and they are it's a highly competitive marketplace because they don't necessarily have to be automotive specific. They can go to other sectors and apply that knowledge base.
Everyone's a tech firm now, aren't they? And I guess
Exactly,
you know, the sort of, that's tricky. We're running out of time. We've got 5 minutes left. I'm going to ask you the big question, and I'm going to put you on the spot first, John. What's the next big thing to emerge from automotive?
The next big thing, I think, is I can't remember the last time I heard the first time I heard a car manufacturer talking about having a mobility strategy. But at those days, it was almost a sort of a buzzword that had no real meaning. I think this, the whole concept of how the world treats mobility as an integrated part of a different life and how the automotive industry adapts to that, that's the next big thing. You know, that in that entirely different world to the one we have today, is the automotive industry still thriving, still generating, you know, demand, still creating jobs, still creating profitability. And that's, for me, is the next big thing.
John. Chris?
Yeah, building on what John says, I think what we'll see is a shift away from it being an aspirational purchase to much more a service orientated purchase. I think that's following the trend of the way society procures things now, and I think that will impact the automotive sector as well.
Thanks, Chris. And finally, Charlotte.
I absolutely agree. I think it's been cited numerous times how society will change and the shape of our cities and places will change as the automotive sector and its servitisation plays out. I'm actually interested probably over the last 12 months how the growth of online retail, e-commerce, how does that then apply to the future technologies that are coming through? And again, how will that have an impact on the places that we live and work?
Thank you very much, All. That's been an absolute education for me. So thank you so much. I'd like to thank our sponsors of this session again, Invest Coventry and Warwickshire, and especially thanks to John, Chris and Charlotte. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sam.